I don't know why it's not showing up. We are live on Spotlight Publishing's Author Studio, and we are going to have a lot of discussion. The whole purpose of Spotlight Studio is to help authors really make a success of not only publishing a book, but growing their business, using that book as a tool for business growth. We have with us today Paul Weston. He is our newest author. Hails from Canada. What part of Canada, Paul?
I'm in Newmarket, about an hour north of Toronto in Ontario.
Must be kind of cold there.
It's a bit chilly, minus 22 on Saturday, Celsius, so bracing.
Awesome. And then we have our amazing expert, Bruce Jones. We're going to be talking about how to keep your books selling. And so as we enter this broadcast, there are a lot of things that I prepared on the side, and I don't know why they're not working. So we're just going to get started. And our first interview is going to be with Paul. So Bruce, I'm going to put you in the background for a little bit. I just want to make that introduction. Thank you. And we have, let's see if this works. I don't know if it shows in the background, so I'm not going to worry about it. I had a picture of your book, a link, and all that good stuff. Paul Weston, a pleasure to have you here today. Yay, you've got the book. So excited to speak with you again about this amazing book you brought to the world, and it's Running in the Rain. Seriously, how hard can it be? Mm-hmm. And I kind of, being a desert rat, I say, well, that might be pretty hard. So tell everybody what the premise is behind your book, why you wrote it, what it's about. But I do want to say that Paul, he did all the right things for this book launch, and it's been pretty amazing. He is now a #1 international bestseller. And he's staying very high in the rankings as #1 in many, many categories, not just one or two, but he has really, really done an excellent job building his launch team, doing all the other things that make this book really amazing, and really showcase him as an expert. So let's hear from you, Paul, as to what this journey's been like, how, where this book got started.
So, thanks, Becky, for having me, first of all. Running in the rain, first of all, it's not just about running, and it's not just about the weather. It's about lots of other things as well. But a lot of runners say, oh, yeah, I must read this. I said, well, it's not just about running. It's because running in the rain, for me, is a metaphor for life. We move forward from the day we're born till the day we shuffle off this mortal coil. We're moving forward educationally. We're moving forward spiritually, emotionally, relationship-wise. We're always moving, slowly, sometimes fast, sometimes medium-paced. And with regards to running, I often hear people say, oh, I didn't go for a run today because it was raining. And that's a pretty poor excuse for not going for a run. And just over the last couple of years, I guess, I've put that in perspective, that people often don't get as much out of life because they come up with some pretty weak reasons for not doing stuff. And that's really what the book is all about. It's about creating strategies for getting a lot more out of your life and building systems to do that. And there's a key part of the book is about goals really stink. It's the second chapter. We talk about, people get focused on goals and this time of year, what's my goal for the year, everything else. And so many goals are not met and people get very disillusioned by that. It's better to have a system. And the goal for me is just really a measurement tool to see if the system works. And it's interesting you said that, I'd kind of done everything as you advised to get to international #1 best-selling status. You presented a system to me, and I'm pretty good at following systems, and I did pretty much everything you suggested, and we got the goal. We hit the target.
That's awesome.
So, and if we hadn't quite done that, and we could look back at the system and say, well, that didn't work for me. What would I want to do with my next book, and so on, which is already in the works. But what would I want to do with that? But no, this was a system, and it's exactly what the book's all about. It's creating systems and strategies to get as much out of your life as you can.
I know that story so much about the setting of the goals. And, usually by February, you're saying, well, wow, I didn't stay on track at all. So they do stink. Yeah. But the strategies that you outline in your book have been so fascinating, really interesting to see the separation from work life to family life to, your own personal health and well-being, and the distractions that often come in the way.
Yeah. I have a theory, a very strong theory, and the more that people I share this with turn around and say, I really think you're onto something, I can totally relate to that. I believe that we spend every minute of our time in one of three energy zones. First of all, our professional energy zone, going to work, whatever we do that brings in revenue to pay the mortgage and put food on the table. And that's where we spend a chunk of our time Monday to Friday between certain hours in the day. The second one is our personal energy zone. That's where we're doing the me stuff. So I'm an endurance athlete, I'm a triathlete. When I'm swimming, when I'm running, when I'm on my bike, I'm sitting on my deck reading a book, I'm in my own zone, my personal zone. And we need to have time there. We need to have time for ourselves. People who do yoga classes, who meditate, that's personal zone. And then finally, social zone. Pretty much everything else we do with our family, friends, work colleagues, even if we're not at work, we spend time with them, and that's our social zone. And if we dilute those zones, then we become less effective. We don't get as much out of those zones. Our energy starts to become sapped. A good example of that is if you're sitting at work on your laptop working on a project and your phone beeps and it's your partner texting you about, pick up some shopping on the way home this evening from the grocery store, and you react to that. You've just now sort of diluted your social energy zone with your professional energy zone, and your effectiveness in that professional energy zone has been diminished, and you've now got to play catch up. And more and more times you get distracted away from that, you've got to go back even further to get to where you were. Then you start to rush, then you make mistakes, and then you start doing a little bit of work in the evenings. And then the gap between kind of finishing work and going to sleep gets smaller and smaller. You don't disengage, you don't sleep well, and the following day you're open to distractions even more. And it's the same in our in our personal energy zones. If we sit in an evening quietly reading a book and we keep answering work emails on our phones, we're diluting our personal time with our professional time, and that's not good. And finally, social zones. I'm sure any families out there listening who've got teenage kids, you're almost certainly going to be sitting at the dinner table and one of those kids is doing Snapchat or Instagram or something. And that dilutes that social energy zone as well. So it's really important that we spend quality time in each of our zones. That's a huge part of the book.
Well, it's so true, and I can say I'm guilty as well, because there's so many, especially in this publishing business. My authors will go, they'll pay attention for a while, and then they don't pay attention, and then here we're coming up on launch, and what do I do? And so I'm always responding, even in my personal time. And I had to your book, they realized how not fitting it is, how it's not conducive to even good health for your body, that it's really important. So what is your hope as this book is released? It's still going very strong as far as high ranking in Australia and in Canada. You are in the US, which is really amazing because of the fact that you really don't have a strong US following. You have some followers, but what do you hope people gain from being able to take a copy of your book?
Well, first of all, I hope people look at it and go, yeah, I recognize and relate to a lot of the content here. And I mean, even the interview we did last week on launch day, a lot of people contacted me and said, yeah, that makes total sense. And what's been really interesting is people have been buying it for other people. A good friend of mine has bought it for a sister who's in Australia. My good friend's in the UK, but she bought it for a sister. I've had a couple of people who said, oh, my husband or my wife needs this book, I'm going to buy it for them. There's one couple.
I wonder who needs it.
There's a couple who are fellow triathletes, and he looked at the presentation and he said, I've ordered the book, and his wife looked at it and said, well, I'm going to order one as well. So they both ordered one. So it seems to resonate with people, which is great. But obviously, I hope it helps people. But what's also been interesting is, as part of my launch team, I reached out to a number of human resource professionals and got them to sort of review the book for me. And I've had some feedback that, they'd like me to talk to some of their team members, because after the last year, they feel like the team members are approaching burnout. They need better structure to their lives. They need to be able to disengage from work. They need to focus more at work so they can disengage. And I'm hoping that the book will help organizations, not just individuals. I think if organizations look at the culture of the way that organization manages the time of its people and the energy of its people, there needs to be better structures and systems in place, because if there isn't, then it's going to have really bad effect on people. I think more now than ever before. People who are working from home, they probably have less structure because they've got so many more distractions around them, and they feel like they're obliged to be online on Zoom calls and so on. And I think this book hopefully will offer them some sort of a template they can use to think about, I need to close my door at 5 o'clock and not go back to work, because not only they're working from home, they're living at work. And they never really switch off. I must admit, I did a couple of hours work yesterday afternoon. We're in lockdown here. There's not what else to do, to be honest. So I did a couple of hours work, but that means I can free up a bit of time. Probably on Friday, I'll finish early this week because I've got a couple of things I want to do. So I'm perfectly fine doing that. But I work for myself. I'm self-employed. I run my own business with my wife. So I can work whenever I want. But if you feel obliged to work of an evening to catch up on work, that's not healthy.
No, you need the downtime and need to replenish, rebuild. That's very, very important. So let's address the process of becoming a #1 bestseller. Why do you feel that's important? And what would you recommend to other authors? Because there's so many that are coming to me saying, how do you do what you do? What strategies do you use? How is this for you? And what would you recommend to other authors?
Follow the system. I think. I came to you when the book was done, pretty much finished, and Susan, my editor, was well into it. We were approaching the second or third edit. I cracked the book in 6 months, pretty much finished in 6 months, and it was just tweaking and editing and taking a few bits out. And then I think it's moving forward. It's having that plan, having that strategy. And when I looked at all the stuff you sent me, it was completely new. It's my first book. But I obviously had to believe in what you were saying, and I ran with it, selected the right people to preview the book for me. I reached out to, you'll see in the book, hopefully people will read the book. I've got a strong military background, 26 years in the Royal Marines in the UK. I reached out to my former boss, the Commandant General of the Royal Marines, a very, very senior officer. He was Assistant Chief of the Defence Staff and former Governor of Gibraltar, and he very kindly agreed to write a foreword and spread sort of the word around. I went to another commanding officer. I had a good breakdown of people from my previous life, early part of my life, to more recently business associates, friends, colleagues, and so on, who also, did the reviews. And I think that because there's a good cross-representation of people, they spread it in their networks as well. And social media. I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm on it because I keep in touch with people around the world. But I just watching the stuff I put on Facebook, it's remarkable the people who are sort of catching up, and LinkedIn as well. I've had over 3,500 views of the post I put up to say I'd made international #1 best-selling author status, and well over 100 sort of comments and likes, and people who I didn't think would be interested said, "Hey, I've ordered a copy. Look forward to reading it." So, certainly that part of it fitted quite well. But I think, just like I said, 33 times now, follow the system. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. If there's a system there that works, it worked for me. Stick with it and go with it. I think it worked really strongly for me.
Thank you for that. One that I see is that the authors hire me to really a powerful launch to the board and really do all the strategies that I do, but then watching for the success of the book to continue on, a lot of little things that an author needs to do to keep it up in the spotlight, to really make it be worth all the time and effort of writing a book, because there's a lot of books being published right now. How do we keep it front and center and people finding that book? And that's the key to the real success of being an author. And as we go into the next segment of our show, Bruce Jones is the one that he's amazing at what he does. He's always teaching how to keep that book out there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of tools, a lot of resources. I myself is starting a couple of courses that augment the whole concept of it, and offering services. I'm putting together some packages for services that are for the authors, because many are just super busy. They're, some are doctors, some are really busy doing what they're doing, and they just don't have the bandwidth to do it. So we're putting together packages to serve in that way too. Thank you, Paul, for for being one of my most awesome authors. It's fun when an author says, "Yes, this is what I'm going to do." An author follows the instructions and does exactly what is needed to do in order to make it a success.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you. And now we are this. I think I figured. Okay, we went to a commercial break, and this is my first show, and I'll be very transparent about that. I forgot to announce that we're going to a commercial break, and I'm going to put up the next banner for a minute. We'll go into a commercial break right now, and then we will bring in Bruce Jones. There were so many that lost their businesses during that time. Okay, I am back, but the internet keeps going down today. This is not fun.
Oh, it's the thing of live broadcasting, you know.
Oh, I'm like, no, 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 no.
This is when you feel the sweat starting to go down your back. You're going,
Yes.
no.
Oh, it started that way this morning. I was just like, I had early morning appointments and it just kept going. I'm like, okay.
It's like sometimes the internet gremlins are just hiding there in the world. So it's.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. I want to introduce Bruce Jones. He has been in the publishing realm for pretty much all your career, haven't you? About 45,
Yeah,
50 years.
I mean, I've been a graphic designer since I was 30, so I'm 66 now. And publishing enters every part of that. And then on my sort of seriously with my own books is probably 10 or 11 years. It's been I should grab it. Wait a minute, I have it right here. Anybody knows me, I always get out of the chair and go get my there's all my stuff back there. This was my first. This is 1979 in Boston. I was just out of school, and I met this guy right here, Frank Fissler, and he was a bartender where at the bar that I hung out at, and we put together this little children's book, and so I've been doing it for a long, long time, but on the serious stuff was probably about 12 years ago. Once Amazon opened up KDP or CreateSpace, the earlier version of KDP, and allowed us to publish for free.
You know, that is pretty amazing what self-publishing has brought to the world. It's changed, it's transformed our world. Yep. You know, Bruce has been just incredible for helping me. I get a lot of books come through, and sometimes I think I can do that really easy. And I get stuck, and he guides me and makes sure that this is so possible. I so appreciate that you're coming on today and sharing your wisdom. It's so very important that we take our message to the world. And one of my opening statement, which I was going to read in the beginning, but I was so flustered with my internet, is storytelling can bring to light untapped wisdom, heal lives, and transform hearts. It's a path for growth and sharing. In our well-told stories, we become advocates, unifiers, way showers, truth tellers, and legacy makers. And it's through the threads of our stories that we weave together an empowered new world. And I find the amazing authors that I work with, and I know you've worked with too, they share some incredible wisdom, so many good things that are being brought to the world. And with self-publishing at our fingertips, what better time is this to be able to do something like this?
I often say to people that publishing is the fulfillment of a dream you didn't know you have. Your published book is the fulfillment of a dream you didn't know you have. Often, you know, when you see somebody, especially a brand new, I mean, I published a lot of books, and it's still thrilling every time you know, like, and here's my newest one, you know, shameless plug. But every time even now that I've published lots, you still have the thing, but especially with the first book of it that an author creates, they don't quite realize what's going to happen to them. It's really can be transformative for their lives, for bringing order to things, and just moves them to a different place. And they didn't realize how powerful that was going to be for them to pull all that stuff together and push it out to the world. So,
well, it's. I know when I wrote my book, it wasn't just the fact of the publishing and becoming an international bestseller, but the writing of it itself was transformative. Yep. It was healing. It just made such a difference. And then when you write it and you say, if it helps just one person, it's so worth it. And yet when you find you've helped many, that's like, wow, you know, really the difference.
Well, that's why I always say too, the most people say, what's your definition of success? And I say the definition of success is the selling of that first copy, because that means you completed the journey. You went through the writing and the editing and the design and layout and all that publishing stuff, and you navigated, you know, Amazon and getting it up someplace, and, you know, the e-commerce so the money can come back into your bank account. You did the entire process. So after that, a lot of it's marketing. You just have to kind of like, well, how do I get sale 2, 3, and 4? But that first getting through that journey, that arc of things is quite a challenge. Can be a challenge sometimes. It's often really successful doing that. The other thing that I was just say to add to my story is, for me, one of my earliest memories around 5 years old was wanting to publish books, but I'm dyslexic. So I was that kid in school that made models and did projects instead of writing papers. The teachers would feel sorry for me because I still don't know a noun, a verb. I don't know that stuff, but I finally just pushed my way through it at 53. And I've been doing a lot of blogging and a lot of different stuff. And I just kept going. I said, I just want to figure out how to do this. And I had this sort of magical moment happen to me at the end of, there's an internet marketer, Jeff Walker, who had this exercise of building a business plan. He had us do it in little paragraphs, little pieces. And so, okay, I could write one sentence and one little paragraph. And and then by the time that process was done, for some reason, though, basically the words just kept falling out of my fingertips. And
yes, it's amazing how that happens.
It's just like, whoa. And then, there are emails that I wrote at that time that are probably 4 pages long because I was like, oh, this works. I can do it.
I can do this.
This keeps coming. And I have no idea somehow I pushed through whatever that barrier was. And, and I learned about editing and the writing needed a lot of work, but the words started to come out. My brain slowed down enough to somehow get the stuff to happen. And so, for me, it was magical because something I had dreamed about since being a little kid, I could now, I could have it in my hands. So, and then I was able to mix all the graphic design experience and all that into it. So
that's worth a lot. That's pure gold.
Right.
So Bruce, for those that are listening, in the text below in the comments, if you're on Facebook or on YouTube or whatever, there's a description here and there's links to how to get a hold of Bruce. But the reason I have Bruce with us today in Author Studio is to showcase what he's doing right now. He has a course he's created. He's created many courses. How to sell your book. And this is one of the biggest things an author struggles with is getting that book sold. And not just that bestseller launch that gets that initial push, but long after that time, that's where, I always say becoming an author is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the lazy.
That's right.
Because there's so much that goes into it. But it's really a crime. I always say it's a crime if you're not doing any marketing, if you're not doing whatever it takes to get that book out to the world, then what? Because there are many, many books being published today, and it's our responsibility as the author to bring that book to the world and keep it out there where people are finding it and seeing it. So tell us about this course that you're teaching, and would like to go into a little detail and I'm going to let you take the stage here to have a
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I just ran through a challenge. I just did the How to Sell Your Book challenge based off of my book. And I'll give you a selling tip right at the moment. If you're a new author and you have a book, show it. Show it on screen. You see me hold this up. That's tactical. I'm doing that for a reason to say, hey, this is my book and it's associated with me and we can do it. So if you have opportunities to do all these things now, then, in which we do, you should hold it up, be proud of your book and show it up. So what I did was I ran a challenge based around that book, and I based it actually on the chapters of the book, the 4 core chapters of the book. And my basic philosophy about book marketing, this is what I use on all of my books, is you have to get the world to be aware of your book. So you take the content of your book and you spread it around so that people can find it, and primarily so that Google can find it. We are a Google world and Google search engines. And they're really sort of three-ish, there were more, but sort of 3 main search engines: Google, YouTube, and Amazon all have extremely powerful search engines, and you need to have your content out there so those search engines can see it. So what I recommend people to do, and I have done this on pretty all the successful books. I have a lot of books, but it's just a lot of work. But the successful books, is I will take the content and break it into small pieces. So I have this in the book. I talk about the 4 pillars. So the first one is to use your book's content to sell your book. So if you have a business book, a how-to, self-help, a cookbook, any book like that, you can easily break that stuff up and put it onto a blog or a website or post it. I like it on sort of permanent places. By permanent, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are nice, but they're temporary. Things
they don't keep it right front and center.
But your website and your blog and YouTube, I have videos on YouTube that are approaching 10 years old, and they're still out there doing their thing. Pinterest is fairly permanent, though. I think Pinterest just made some changes. But primarily getting your content out there. And if you have a book that doesn't have content, and I think almost every book, you can break it apart. But let's say you have a fiction book that doesn't really have sort of lessons and things like that, is to build a world around your book of related things. So if your book is on the 19th century romance in England, well, you can talk about England. You can talk about what was going on at that time.
Absolutely.
Stuff. And there's so much content. You can, from videos on YouTube to blog posts, you're not stealing people's content, but you're getting inspired, you're sharing, you're talking about the places. So that's pillar number 1, is send that out. If you build a world, or to do it. And a key part of all of this is to, and this is probably this, I put this in pillar 4, but is making your book easy to buy. One of the biggest mistakes I see, especially with new authors, is they don't give a clear path to purchase. I have a large Facebook group. People post their new books all the time, and they're really proud. Here's my new book, but there's no link. And so you have to complete the product journey. You think of it as a product. You're selling a product. You have to get it all to Amazon. So pillar 1 is get your content and spread it around. Pillar 2 is then use all the social media tools that we have to cross promote and spread it everywhere. So every blog post, video, whatever you're doing, we have built this system of share buttons, and you can easily just share it. So it's spreading. And again, clear links to get it out there. And some amazing things have happened in this world is that the major barriers have fallen in publishing, marketing, advertising, distribution, and publishing. So publishing is Amazon. We can publish for free. Marketing are all the social media platforms. We can spread our message and talk about our books and things. Advertising is we have access to advertising, and not just the paid things that you hear about, Facebook ads. But if we go back to pillar 1, wherever you spread your content, you wrap ads around your content for your own books. What does that mean? I put a thumbnail of your book. Like if it's a blog, you probably have a sidebar. Put a thumbnail that this book is available on Amazon. So Google sends somebody to your page. They read it, they like it, they go, oh, he has a book, or she has a book. Let's check it out. It's a clear link. So that's a key component of all this, is these clear, very clear links. You do a blog post, there's a sell line at the bottom of it that says, Becky Norwood is the author of, and her latest book is, and you can get it at Amazon. 2 sentences. Link.
Amazing, yeah.
Yes.
One of the things that I encourage my authors to do is to read portions of their chapters as well, and read them aloud. Use video in the way that video is meant to be used, and it's so easy it's incredibly simple to share.
Right.
It's just pretty amazing what can be done with all of that. And there's a lot of simple things that we can do. It doesn't have to be complicated. And speaking about Google, I published a book on Amazon for a client on Sunday. On Monday morning, she's calling me. She had Googled her name. And her book showed up, and the link to Amazon was right there. That's just from. I was surprised because it was the very next morning, and I did it late in the afternoon on Sunday. It was amazing.
Google has gotten so good at narrowly focusing down on specific things. It's really powerful now. It's really a lot of the fluff and the excess is gone. There's more ads around it, but they are really, really good at getting to that thing that the person is looking for. So that's number 2. So publishing is Amazon, marketing is all the social media, advertising. We have access to paid if we feel like it, but I recommend just put ads for your books around your books. Broadcasting, we're broadcasting right now. So whether you're Facebook Live, you're using StreamYard like this, or you're using Instagram, what you can broadcast to the world. I always, think, the NBC paid $4 billion for the Olympics. We paid nothing, and we can run the Olympics in our backyard if we feel. So this is an unbelievable tool. And distribution. The key of a lot of this is that because we are self-publishing and we're using Amazon generally for most of the people here, we don't have any printing costs, storage costs, shipping costs, money costs. All of that is taken care of. Our job is create and market. Create, publish, market. That's our job. Create, publish, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. So there also, the third pillar is there's so many ways to sell your book outside of Amazon. So everybody sort of thinks they do their book, put it up on Amazon. That's it. What happened? Nothing happens. But we have the backs of our books. So if you have a book, even if you have one book, put your books in the back of your book. Somebody might have bought your book, but they didn't know that you actually have 4 other books. So you can cross-promote in your books. You can cross-promote in the chapter. You can highlight your products. Your book doesn't have to be the thing that's selling. It might be all your services and other things, consulting, speaking, whatever you're doing. But this is your brochure.
It is.
This is your brochure, and this is your avenue into your world, and you can use this.
Speaking to that, Bruce, it's really interesting. I have most of my nonfiction authors, I have them create a video for each chapter.
Oh.
And we use the QR in either at the beginning or the end.
At the end
it's
of the
linked to a YouTube
chapter.
video.
Huh.
So they take a picture of that QR code. It comes to life and you're speaking. So now that book has become interactive.
Ooh,
And-
interactive and interact. Yeah. And the other, and I would add to that, because I talk through the video. So in other words, what I always try to do is say, hey, above here are the links to the book, or they're down here. Like if it's if Facebook, they're up here. If it's YouTube, they're down here. But you have to give people really clear calls to action of what you want them to do. And you can have your video on YouTube and go, the link's in the description. Just go down there, check it out. It's there, and link it. But that's a great idea. I love the QR code in the book. So looks like you have frozen there, but I will keep going on. So other ways to sell in the real world, we have, we can sell online, all kinds of different ways. We can also sell in the real world. So we're giving speeches, we're giving talks, we might be the local bookstores in your neighborhood, all those kinds of things. So that's another way that we can sell. And you just never know where you're going to resonate. So it really needs to be in lots and lots of different places. One of my favorite things to do is once your sort of book is established is to think about repurposing your book. And so you can take the content of your book and repurpose it into other things. So here's a good example of it. This is one of my early books, Essential Chords. So it's a book for chords for guitar, mandolin, ukulele, and banjo. It's a beginning book and it sells nicely. And I had somebody reach out to me who was left-handed. Most chord books are right-handed because we're right-handed. So, but I had somebody reach out and said, could you make a left-handed version of this book for left-handed guitar players? So I made a left-handed version and turned it into another product that went with it. In the back of this book, this is probably my most successful repurposing book, but I had blank sheet music that I had put in here for writing songs on. You could photocopy that because I took 100 of those pages. I just made a book with 100 blank pages. So repurposing your book along with putting the cross-promoting in the back of the book, but repurposing. So if you have a children's book, it's a great example. If you have great illustrations, especially make the arrangement with the illustrator that you have full rights to all your illustrations. You can make calendars. You can make T-shirts. You can do hats, mugs, pillows, all kinds. You can take the illustrations, take the color out of them, and now you have a companion coloring book. So there are a zillion ways, and through the course of the challenge, what I realized is that some of my most successful books or products were not the original product. I published a book or a product or something, it's something I pulled out of that book and turned it, this the second product, the third product that became the success from that book. So books don't end. Don't just sort of let them go. And especially if you're a self-help, how-to teaching, any of that kind of book, those make fantastic workbooks, a companion workbook. Now you have a bundle of two things together. So it really makes a big difference. And then the last part is to make your book easy to buy, which I emphasize through the entire process. Clear buttons with the words buy or buy on Amazon, and then link them to the different places. So
there's so much available to us anymore. It's really magical how much is available to us. We're going to go to a brief commercial break, because I'm going to put a banner on the backside so you can see how to get a hold of Bruce and to check out what he does. That was very brief, huh?
We are back.
And my internet is terrible today. It's just like,
sometimes that's just.
So, what is really fun is I had homeschooled my children. It's been many years after that, actually, that we met through a publishing network of other people that we really have in common that were our friends. But it's amazing because I have those books on my bookshelf. It's just that's how far-reaching some of the work that we do. But if you published one book, if you're the best advice I can say is publish again. Do
another one. Yep. I think once you have the system down, excuse me, just keep creating and keep doing it, and it will come. And what I have learned also about books is that you really don't know which one's going to work, which one's going to resonate, and so you want to kind of do the next one and do the next one. And one of the things that I have people do, especially if you're using a blog, remember on Pillar 1, which is to spread your content around, is pretty much all websites and all blogs have some kind of statistical package that goes with them. You can see the stats. So by looking at those stats, you can see which of your posts actually resonates with your audience. So what I do is to say, share your content, take the content and put it out there and share it in small chunks, but small focused chunks with really good titles and keywords and things, so that if you put 2 or 3 topics together, you don't know which is the one that resonated. But if it's just really one topic out of your book, I'm talking 300 to 500 words, 400 words, something like that. You're not going crazy. It's already written. You already wrote it. You don't have to write original new stuff. Just go into your book and copy and paste and have a good title on it and put a good little line at the bottom to where to buy it. But you will see very quickly that from the Google stats, Google Analytics, or your web stats, or whatever you're on, you will see which ones resonate and which ones don't. They rise to the top very quickly, and Google sends traffic to your website. You can then go and look, and you go, oh, this is the one that people like. So maybe you do more of that, or that becomes the second book. Some people write their books right into their blogs, and they use this sort of technique of looking at the audience response, looking at the stats to see where they should be going with their book, where they can sort of put that information together. So there's a lot of things you can do with that, but by getting that kind of information out about your books, we don't maybe have time today, but in a future show, maybe we'll talk about on the Amazon sales page. If you look at your book or look at your competitors' books or any books that have been out there for a little bit and are selling, if you look just below the book, you will see that Amazon matches up books frequently bought together, and Amazon puts them together in a bundle. That is fantastic marketing research that you can use to see how does Amazon see your book. we see our books and our things from our point of view, but in reality, we have to sort of see it from another point of view. So, so those are all things that we can do to get our books out there. All right, we'll wrap it up. Send this back to Becky, and the internet gods will be kinder on another day when things aren't so broken. All right, talk to you soon.